remember when we first started a business reading some statistic from Business Blog that was like a third of startup companies fail because of disagreements among the founders. If you want to start a business with someone, be ready to work really hard on your relationship with that person. It's the interpersonal stuff is much bigger than you would probably think. If you choose the right person, it's 100% worth it.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs podcast. We discuss how to grow 1% every day in both business and itself. Joining me today is Patrick Murphy, Ph.D. and Heather Duncan, MPH, Ph.D. Discuss M&D Science Consulting and Communications, a company whose focus is to ensure effective communication between public health officials, research scientists, and the public. Thank you, Dr. Murphy and Dr. Duncan, for joining me today.
You're welcome. Nice to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, super exciting because you're somebody that are bringing clarity to stuff that we as general consumers don't really understand without a voice like yours, bringing an actual, let's say layman's term into the data and into the science that's happening in the health field every single day. Can you give me a background of kind of how this business started, where the idea came from, and what are you actually executing on a day-to-day activities today?
Well, let me go first. So there's two different reasons. There's like a very business specific reason and then personal reasons. And we wanted to do what's really important to do is that we're successful and we're doing meaningful work that aligns with our values. And that was our number one thing. To do that, we try to make everything as accessible as possible. Heather is more on the public health side, and I'm more on the biomedical side, but we both graduated from the same school of public health. And so we each try to approach things from different angles to meet in the middle to come up with new ways to communicate and be more effective for all people involved. The general public, healthcare people, biomedical people, healthcare professionals, everybody.
Yeah, and I can give a little bit more personal context as well. So Patrick was actually my instructor. That was how we met. So we both come from the University at Albany. And at the time that we met, I was actually faculty there. I was teaching in the writing and critical inquiry program. I have a doctorate in English. I'm currently pursuing a doctorate in epidemiology, also through UAlbany. But at the time, I was transitioning from a career in humanities out of that into wanting to go into public health. And I really wanted to pursue epidemiology. So I started my master's in public health. And that was where I happened to encounter Patrick. And we just kind of connected because we have a very similar outlook. And we'd also had a lot of similar experiences, I would say, through our academic endeavors. I was pretty burnt out. Teaching through COVID was really difficult, and the job market had also really tanked through COVID, and my job was no longer very secure. So was kind of time for me to jump ship and do something different. And so I feel like, Patrick and I kind of met each other at the right time where we were both ready to start something new. And, it took a few years, but ultimately it resulted in us starting this business together.
Hey, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the content. Just want to take a quick intermission to address the business owners watching this right now. I have been in the marketing industry for over a decade, and I have found that there is two major things that I am trying to help the world understand. One, there's a common denominator to success. Every successful business has the same foundational structure built out, and we'd love to be able to support understanding what that foundation is. And two, 90% of marketing agencies screw you over for one clear identifier, and that is data. Only 3% of consumers are ready to purchase today. The other 97% are being nurtured by your advertising dollars and advertising spend. We created Kaizen Marketing Agency to give you ownership of not only the customers that you're getting through your front door, but also the ownership of your data and understanding what actually grows your business and giving you the control to be able to grow it. My goal personally is to be one of the best marketers in the world. And the only way to do that is to help as many businesses as I possibly can actually grow their company. Not just sell Facebook ads or Google ads, but put a service together that gives you ownership and growth. So I hope you enjoy this content. If you're loving it, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And if you really want to know more about how to grow your company and you want a free audit and game plan. We'll hand you the keys to the kingdom of how to be successful. Click the link below. We'll do a 15-minute audit. First 10 minutes, we'll really break down your business. Last 5 minutes, we'll show you those common denominators that you need to be successful for your company and how to implement it into your business.
Awesome backstory, but I need some clarity. What are you guys doing in the market, right? So you're giving clarity, but give me a case study of someone that you've worked with and what you've done to either the public official side, the medical side, or the public side that helps bring clarity. Give me a breakdown of one of your case.
Okay, I can start that off with one thing that I do is so I'm a molecular geneticist. I have a background in biomedical science. And what I try to do is I try to pick at least one person every 3 months who's struggling with a healthcare issue. And then I do the research for them, write up everything about them, teach them about what's going on, what their treatments are in lay terms. And then I give them a copy of a version of that for their healthcare people. And try to get to them some resolution and some progress moving forward. Because if they don't know what is causing things can stall out, and the person is in a bad space before that. So that's the number one thing. I started doing that as soon as I graduated because I wanted what's the point of having this degree if I don't help people? And so that I just do for free. But I think it's a good demonstration of our values.
Patrick, do you want me to talk a little bit about like our client portfolio? And
Yeah, that would be great.
yeah, so we have a pretty big range of clients now. We've been in business since January of 2024, and it took us a while to grow. We started off with just a couple of pretty small clients. Like one who's still with us now is actually a sociologist, and we've helped him with designing a study, carrying out a survey, doing data analysis. I have a data analysis background as well, so I can do statistical analysis and so forth. And then we kind of expanded from there. I would say what kind of got us on the map was actually, and we've taken a somewhat non-traditional path through this career or this industry. We started kind of we did a lot of volunteer work, like what Patrick just mentioned, but we also started volunteering for the American Medical Writers Association, the New York State Public Health Association, those two primarily. And we started producing educational content because we kind of came in as outsiders. I have a marketing and communications background as well. Patrick has an art background. So we had this very unique combination of skills. And so we were able to come in right away and be like, hey, we have this like new perspective on things that we think might be helpful for people. And so it was kind of by like, I guess, marketing ourselves to other people in the industry that we started to get referrals to clients. And so now our biggest client is a medical device company. They're a multinational company. That's where like most of our billings are coming from at the moment. But we are also doing things like producing a systematic review for a team of medical oncologists at Rutgers University. Who else do we have, Patrick? I'm trying to think of.
But I understand the gist is you're giving clarity and not just data, but in a visual representation to the parties to allow them to understand if you're working directly with the public or you're working directly with handing off information from one medical facility to another. You're helping them with clarity. Is that really what it comes down to?
Yeah, I would say so. And we also as a business, we do more than what a typical like two-person team. Well, first of all, there's not very many teams in general in medical writing or in public health. It's either you're a freelancer or working as a medical writer, or you're working typically for a state or federal agency as an epidemiologist. But Patrick and I really wanted to do more than that. And specifically, we really saw a communications gap. And I think the root of a lot of the problems that we have with public health and with the healthcare industry to a large extent as well comes down to failures of communication. And so that is really what we try to do for every client, even if their main goal might not be to communicate better. It might be like with this systematic review I'm working on, it's to produce a manuscript. But we try to go in and kind of talk to them at multiple stages of the project about where they might be able to expand the reach of who's reading their materials, and make their work more accessible, explore different ways to promote their work that they may not have thought of. So we try to kind of bring that value added, which is not something Like typically, if you were, a scientist or a medical researcher and you wanted that service, you would have to go to a marketing firm. You couldn't expect a medical writer to do it for you necessarily. So by combining like multiple skill sets, because we both have such non-traditional backgrounds, we're able to do a lot more with less. And so I think that's kind of one of our major strengths.
Oh, beautiful. So it's really, I mean, clearly from the internal process to the external process, where it's not just working with them to understand the statistics, the data points, the visuality of what they're going through and the studies they're going through, but also, hey, if you help getting this out to the consumer base, we can also help. Extremely unique. Something I've never really heard before. I'm ignorant to the field myself, right? So it sounds like you guys found a niche market that you were able to go at a different angle and then be able to represent yourself with clarity and be able to position yourself with all of your skill sets. Like you say, one of marketing and communication, another one in art, and both of you guys with the love and passion of helping people, which is sounds like where this all stemmed out from. And create this beautiful business. The question is, where's it going? Where do you plan on taking the company in the next say 1 to 3 years? You guys looking to help, to have national publications around the business that support public health and get that information out to the consumer base. Where are you looking to take the company?
Heather, do you want me to talk about that since it's kind of my stuff?
Just laughing about taking it because we are thinking of taking it somewhere. But it just what I would like to see is we know a lot of extremely talented people, and we would like to start employing them as we grow because as we've gone over things and you're saying we're doing plain spoken language, we're trying to meet all these different customer needs. So it's very time consuming. So we want to be able to have people that we can bring on board so we can amplify our ability to do that. We're not quite there yet. We're very much growing. We're doing our best to grow as thoughtfully as possible. And if that's slow, that's and so and we're also trying to stay flexible because everything is in flux right now. Doing science communication today is nothing like it was 5 years ago or anything before the pandemic. Everything is changing. Things are changing economically. And so this is a really nimble way for us to be in business so we can be poised to exploit whatever comes up. So as we do things, we see more gaps. We see more places where people could use help. And that's one thing, one thing I'm specifically focusing on is the LGBTQ plus community right now. Like how can I contribute to helping them navigate this situation because there's a lot of challenges for our community right now. So that's one thing that I'm doing. So let's try to go from conceptual to a very specific example of what I do. Does that help?
Definitely answers part of the question of just what direction do you want to take the company. Heather, you have anything? I'm sorry, Dr. Duncan, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, Heather is fine. Yeah, I could do that as well. So I guess, first of all, your question kind of made me think of something that came up quite a bit for us when we're still early days, I think. In the first like 6 months or so of starting our business, we had a lot of people asking us like, do you have a business plan? Like what's your 1 year plan, your 2 year plan, your 5 year plan? And that question used to really like intimidate us because we really didn't have one when we started. And instead, what we did was like we spoke to a lot of people. We had a lot of conversations. We did a lot of like informational interviews with different size organizations to kind of figure out where we would fit in this ecosystem. And what we discovered was that, in fact, like it would have, I think, been a mistake if we had started from the beginning with like a business plan and had a really like a path sort of laid out, because very shortly after we started our business, the whole landscape of the industry basically just exploded, to be perfectly honest, and not in a good way. I mean, the destructive kind of explosion. Um, and so instead, like we've always, just like Patrick said, been very flexible. So when we see an opportunity, we'll go for it, if we have the capacity to go for it. And so we've done a lot of like smaller projects that I think we wouldn't have ever really expected to do, but they've all, taught us something about either where our strengths or our weaknesses are. And so moving forward, I think that we're really looking, we have some ideas of where we'd like to go in a couple of years, but we're also really ready to pivot whenever we need to. And that just means like, one thing we tried not to do is to rely on one specific client or one specific type of client too much. Like we're really focused on diversifying right now. So one area that we would really like to expand into is CME, which stands for continuing medical education. So that's a very big market right now, and it's a relatively newer market as well. It's even among, the medical writing community, it's been kind of an underdeveloped area, but it's an area that's very much taking off right now, especially with the whole AI revolution. So there's a lot of interest in, for example, like precision education, which basically means that you're using AI tools to create a really customized experience for a physician or a PA or a nurse who's taking these credits to keep their licensure up to date, because that's a requirement for all healthcare professionals. And so I'm actually in my role as a PhD student at the University at Albany. My project, my doctoral project, is focused on developing AI agents for public health, like small public health institutions, so like county level health departments. So I'm doing that work now, and then with an eye towards in the future, I would like to keep building AIs and to help either other organizations or our own organization to, create a set of tools that can be used for that purpose. And so a lot of the work, like Patrick mentioned, are focused on the LGBTQ plus community. That's kind of how we're targeting that community because, we're seeing this sort of loosening of regulations and, consequences for mistreating certain parts of our social makeup. It's just it's a bad time if you are, a minority basically, or at this point. And so we're trying to kind of target the healthcare professionals directly instead of trying to go through, say, like policy people. And so, we feel like we can have more of a direct impact in that way. That may change, in a few years. I don't know. And it may be that there's less of a need for it. And so we can pivot and do something else. But I think the key thing for me has been looking at trends and saying like, okay, what's a fad? What do I think, is going to fizzle? And what do I see really being more of like a sea change, not just in the way that we do business, but in society in general. Think AI is inarguably one of those sea changes, and so that's something that we're putting a lot of focus on at the moment. So yeah, I don't know if that fully answers the question, but
It does. It does. It definitely does. It's funny because you guys both kind of hopped out the same thing. We don't really have that 1, 3, 5 year goal, but then you laid out, it sound like a 6 month, a 1 year, a 2 year goal. You guys have the mindset of growth inside of your heads. And I mean, for the listeners out there, you can hear that the spark of the desire to help people, the desire to want to go and put something into the world that's going to help the general public truly across the board. And then the combination of two different skill sets created a business that is now allowing them to be malleable and flexible and understand that it is ever changing, especially in the market that they're in, but to go front facing and attack it in the best way possible. And it sounds truly in a world of, say, home improvement or e-commerce. You guys are CTOs and COOs, your chief operating officers, and chief technical officers, where you're clearly understanding the operational structure from the business. You're giving clarity to data, clarity to the understanding of what's going on, and then helping in operations in the sense of putting together the marketing and outbound efforts, putting together AI agents to help support them in a further process so that their lives become easier. And it sounds like an absolute beautiful business. I have one question for both of you that we'll end this on, and it's looking for a little bit of advice. Speaking to the entrepreneurs and the business owners that are listening to this right now, Patrick, if you could start, what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone that's either in the world of business and looking to evolve, or just coming into the world of business and trying to figure out how to start?
The biggest piece of advice that I could give, and I've done this twice, so I know it's like you're probably not going to end up where you think you are in the beginning because things are going to change, and it's going to be bumpy. But the best thing that I could tell people, like the number one thing, is network and get out there and meet people and find people who are doing what you want to do and talk to them. Those things have helped me immensely. Having our information interviews. Who is this company? How do they do that? Why do they pick that? Like that helps us inform ourselves.
Very powerful. Yeah, I always say there's 4 core
aspects of any successful human being. It's diligence, organization, perfectionist, and prudence, right? And we can all work hard. We all can be organized. We can all double check our work to our level of perfection. But prudence, the ability to make the right decision, really comes from your environment, who you connect with, and networking. Definitely been one of my flaws for many, many years. But I know people from tip to toe that have really grown their business by meeting the right people and connecting the right dots. And as what you guys did as a company, informing each other on what you want your company to be by absorbing the information of others. Very powerful. Heather, well, how about yourself?
Yeah, and definitely agree with everything that Patrick just said. But in addition to that, I think the biggest thing for me, I think the biggest thing that we did right was like choosing the right person to collaborate with. Patrick and I worked extremely well together, and we were very clear from the beginning of like what kind of, not just what kind of business we wanted, but like what kind of lifestyle we each wanted, and where like our personal goals were in the next 10 years or so. And I remember when we first started a business reading some statistic from some business blog that was like a third of startup companies fail because of disagreements among the founders. And so, I was very mindful that like, starting a business alone has certain advantages because you can make all of the decisions, you can be fully in control. But at the same time, like, I wouldn't have been able to do this without Patrick. And, I think that, like, it's if you want to start a business with someone, be ready to be, like, really, like, to work really hard on your relationship with that person. It's the interpersonal stuff is much bigger than you would probably think. And that's kind of, like, always been the foundation of our business is, like, our friendship with each other. And I think that that's a really good way to do things. And so I would say, if you're thinking of starting a business with other people or with another person, just have that in mind. Like you are going to really have to put effort into that relationship and into learning how to work well together. But it's worth it. It's if you choose the right person, it's 100% worth it.
Can I add one thing? Like one thing that's really, really valuable for us is arguments. We both have different language and cultures in our disciplines. And when we disagree with things or we don't understand what the other person is, I get really excited because we just found a gap. And so, you know, we learn more from those things than we do the things where we're aligned. In like, like Heather was telling me in epidemiology, they name things certain ways, which would be wrong for me. But I'm like, but why do they do that? Okay, that helps me understand more, makes me question more. So arguments are gold.
When there's a common level of respect between the two to make sure the argument's not leading to an emotional attack, but more of a constructive process to improve both your communication, your synergy, and the care you guys have for your goal as a business as well as for each other and doing it together. And Heather, incredible point when it comes to the partnerships. I mean, I have two partners in my business. The first one that I vetted for 3 years, the next one I vetted for 5. And that in that process of understanding that you are giving away that ownership of the business, you're also with the lack of ownership, there's someone else that owns a part of the business. And I couldn't have made my business what it is today without my partners, or I would probably be bald, one of the two. I'm not quite sure, but it wouldn't have been good, right? So, but it's super powerful. Picking the right partner is very incredible, and it is a partner, which means just as you said, you have to develop a friendship there. You have to develop respect. You have to develop communication tactics. You have to develop KPIs of how do we actually see success and failure together, so that way we're all speaking the same conversation going forward. Beautiful little golden nugget of information for our listeners here. Patrick, Heather, can we close this out with if someone's looking for you, someone wants to find out more information, if they're upstate New York. I actually grew up right outside of Albany, so I know the area pretty well. But if someone's in that area and they want to connect with you, how do they find you?
The easiest way is on LinkedIn. I think that's the most accessible way. And then we have our contact information. They could email us. They could call us. Um,
Have a website and all that info is on there as well. So and mdscienceconsulting.com. And we've got, our phone number. You can contact us directly through the form, or you can send us an email.
Perfect. That website's gonna be found below in the description. Patrick, Heather, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you putting light into just a different category of business I've never really heard of, and to talk about the progression and the development of a business that is unique, how you guys find good partnership, how you guys come together, and your desire to help the world around you. It's very, very powerful. If you guys have finished this episode, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next Kaizen podcast.